There we go.
Okay.
Amazing.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming back for another episode of the Transform Your Birth podcast. I've got with me today the beautiful Sheena, and Sheena's got a great story for you. So I'm going to hand it over to you, my darling. Tell me about your births.
Hello, thank you for having me. I had little Lucinda 18 months ago, and in week 37, Lucinda flipped breech, and that was a really big surprise to us. And I had done so much preparation for this birth to be so magical and incredible that it kind of rocked me a little bit. But in the end, I was working with my midwife and a lot of other healthcare people to try my absolute best to still have Lucinda vaginally and go ahead with the breech birth. And it came to 41 weeks and she still hadn't come on her own. And so we booked a cesarean and she came that way. And during the cesarean, we learnt that she never would have come on her own anyway. So that was her path and she was sticking to it.
So let's go back. You had prepared to have a vaginal birth, and
Yes.
that was important to you?
It was. I have an older daughter as well, Evelyn, and she's 4.5. And I guess you don't know what you don't know. And her birth, I guess the best way to describe it would be a cascade of intervention. And she was a big baby, which is perfect. But she came out with forceps and a lot of interventions, I suppose. And I didn't really want to walk that path again. And so when I fell pregnant with Lucinda, I made a really conscious decision to choose a low intervention care provider and access the course through you, Tracy, and really work to put it, I suppose, back in my control rather than in the control of the hospital.
Yeah. You know what we might do, Sheena, is to go back and start again, and I might get you to talk about your first birth first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, totally.
Cool.
I'm conscious that I don't want to. You'll cut this bit out, won't you? You'll cut this bit out. Yeah. So I was with Beck.
Can you just pause the recording?
Oh, yeah. There we go.
Hi, welcome everybody. It's another opportunity to hear a wonderful birth story from the Transform Your Birth podcast. I've got with me today the lovely Sheena, and Sheena has had two babies. She has Evelyn, who's 4.5, and then Lucinda, who was born last year. Now, I love bringing people on who've had two babies because every birth takes you on a different path and gets you to reflect on what worked and what didn't. And that's great information for you. So I'm going to hand over to Sheena now to tell us, how about you start with little Evelyn's birth?
Hello, good morning. Thank you for having me. I had Evelyn in 2018 and we were so excited to be finally pregnant and having a baby. And I was very, I don't know, I suppose the best way to describe it would be that you don't know what you don't know. So I wasn't uninformed, but I just didn't really get the birth space and what my different care options were. So we had private health insurance. So just naturally, we went to an obstetrician for Evelyn's birth. And I loved my obstetrician. I absolutely adored her. And I felt so incredibly safe in her hands. She was a very healthy pregnancy and everything was really fabulous. Evelyn was induced at nearly 39 weeks, so 38 and 5, I think it was, for suspected macrosomia, so a suspected big baby. And she was just shy of 4 kilos, so she was definitely on the larger side. But in hindsight, I definitely wish I didn't have that induction because I think that led to a cascade of interventions that I didn't necessarily now believe that I had to have. So at the time, I definitely made the most informed decision that I could have. And my obstetrician, kept me very, very safe. And for a very long time, I actually said, if I couldn't have that OB again, I wouldn't have another baby because of how safe I felt with her.
Yeah.
And then,
Sheena, women feeling safe is one of the key things, and having a care provider that they can talk to and communicate with. It's interesting, though, that you kind of, in hindsight, wish you hadn't induced. The statistics at the moment are almost 50% of first-time mothers are being induced. And part of the reason for that is because every time your care providers tick a box for a risk, then they've got to be seen to be doing something about that risk to mitigate that risk. Now, that's just basing information on trends and risk analysis, but not necessarily the individual pregnancy. And the big baby thing is a bit tricky too, because babies can look big on a screen, but not necessarily when they're born be as big as what they thought. It's not an accurate assessment. It gives us a bit of an idea about the size of the baby, but it can be out by, quite a bit. And so making a decision around big babies is quite common, but it's something worth challenging. And I often say to people, if you have a big baby, you've been told you need to induce for a particular reason because you've got a higher risk of, then the question to ask your care providers, well, thank you for that information. Now tell me what's going on with my pregnancy. What are the signs in my pregnancy that give us an idea that perhaps we need to induce? Because the thing that we do is we induce because of different reasons, but then there are also risks with induction. So we've got to see the flip side of the coin. So just tell us how that played out for you, Sheena, because that would have been much more difficult.
It's so interesting that you bring up looking at the trends, because when it came time to my second pregnancy, which we'll get to in a bit, that was my exact conversation with the consultant obstetrician at my hospital, who was assessing my baby and I. And my argument straight back to him was, I don't want to know the statistics of the world, which is what you're giving me. Firstly, start with perhaps some Australian statistics, but more so, what about me and my baby? And so I think that's something that I definitely learnt in my first pregnancy, because I didn't ask those questions. And I suppose I was just so excited to meet my baby that I would have signed up for anything. And I was uncomfortable, and I was just ready to meet my baby, and I think I probably went into a few things a little bit blind. And then my induction started quite gently with some gel, and then the second round of gel worked and labor got started, and I didn't need Pitocin, and I didn't need my waters broken or anything. That happened really naturally. So I suppose the labor progressed quite nicely, and then just got wildly intense, and I went from 2 to 9 centimeters in 25 minutes, and then baby got a bit stuck, and I pushed for 2 or 3 hours, and then she came out with forceps in the end, and there was no time for an epidural, and it all got quite dramatic and cascaded very, very quickly, and a bit out of control for me, which I wasn't very comfortable with. So I did a little bit of birth prep for her. I did a hypnobirthing type course, which was one day that my husband and I attended. It wasn't overly accessible for me, so I definitely feel I got some benefit from it. My husband, not so much. He really didn't connect at all with it, because I don't think it necessarily gave us real life hands-on techniques that we could be using throughout the labor and after the birth and whatnot to support the baby and myself and my husband as well. So again, hindsight's a beautiful thing. I would have prepared differently for that birth with what I know now, but at the time I was doing exactly what I felt I should be doing. So I don't have any regrets about that birth at all, but there was definitely a cascade of intervention that I was 100% keen to avoid next time around.
I always say, Sheena, no birth is ever in vain, because we always learn. And like you articulated so beautifully, we don't know what we don't know. And it is a bit of a journey of awakening and kind of navigating our way through choices, through options, through consequences, working out who we are and what's important to us in this process. I believe very strongly women should have the right to choose, and there's no perfect model of care. It's wherever you feel the safest. So at the end of that labor, so it must have got very, very intense at the end. How did that then translate when little Evelyn landed? Like, what was that part like for you?
It was incredible. It was just, we didn't know if we were having a boy or girl. So finding out that she was a girl, and my dad and I were the only people who believed she was a girl, and everyone else said boy. And so that was lovely. I always have been and always will be team girl. I love a little girl gang. So that was fabulous. I did have a hemorrhage after birth, and they then took care of that with some of the hormone in the drip. What is it? Pitocin. So that kind of clamped my uterus right down, but there was a significant amount of stitching and whatnot that needed to happen. And I didn't necessarily feel like I had the oxytocin rush that you would expect, because like Evelyn had a 39 centimeter head and then forceps in there as well I had no pain relief except a little bit of gas, and I had a morphine injection 7 hours prior to her birth. So that was well and truly gone. So when she was being pulled out, I actually was blacking out, and so I remember my head was rolling and I was not present at all. And I think that that really impacted that golden hour, because I don't think I had the presence that I necessarily could have had otherwise. I remember she was laying in the crook of my arm, and I said to my husband, you need to stand beside me. Like, I don't feel like I've got the strength to even make sure she can stay there, But she came up and had her first breastfeed and started a beautiful 3-year breastfeeding journey that day. And it was, like, incredible. I can't even put into words how amazing it was. And that was without that huge oxytocin rush that I would have expected to feel, and may have been there. That may still be why I feel so incredible about something that was so intense and so much, but it was phenomenal. And then we had a few days in the hospital afterwards, getting to know our baby and learning how to look after her, and that was lovely. So I had a fabulous postpartum period. I really can't fault it whatsoever. Yeah. I then had a second hemorrhage a week later. And so we had to get on top of that at the hospital as well. So there was definitely speed bumps for us. Don't get me wrong. We had a lip tie that needed to be taken care of. I had vasospasms to do with feeding and whatever. So there was definitely speed bumps. But when I think back of it, like, becoming a mum for the first time was the best snippet of my life. Yeah.
The bonding is a very unique and individual experience, and yes, women can, when their baby lands, have this massive high, and part of that is because of the big oxytocin surge. But I think you've just shared so beautifully that whether you had the big surge or not, because when a birth gets very, very quick like yours did, it's very hard to feel like you're in any sort of control, and it can be very overwhelming and difficult. So that experience is going to change the hormonal cocktail inside of your body. But bonding is a biological necessity, and it's very, very powerful instinct, both within the new mother and within the baby, to attach and imprint and, get to know who their parents are. And so I love that, even though your birth was a bit of a ride and there were a few speed bumps, that connection with her and your ability to overcome those challenges. Did you feel in any way that the birth itself and what you learnt in the birth was part of what helped you overcome, the speed bumps after she was born?
I think so. I think a lot of it is I think it ignites a drive in you You know, like I've always said that my children are my heart on the outside.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm not sure if it's the hormonal change or, I mean, it's got to be biological, but birth itself just ignites this fire in you. And I think that the speed bumps that I had throughout it almost gives you like, well, if I can do that, I can deal with this.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how to describe it.
Well, do you want me to give you some words? This is what
Yes.
I and see if this feels right for you, but I call it the mother spirit.
Yeah.
She's a bit of a beast. She will do anything
Mm-hmm.
to get her baby here safely. She will go through anything. She will put her body through anything to get her baby safely.
Absolutely.
Now that looks different for every woman. You know, you're obviously pretty fierce, and that's wonderful. You're able to really reclaim, particularly through your breastfeeding journey, potentially what got lost in that birth for you. Do you feel like that's what happened?
I think so, perhaps. Yeah, I definitely would describe myself as a mama bear. Like I absolutely would, like most mums, protect my children with every ounce of my being. And yeah.
And that's what Mother Nature wants you to be able to do.
Well, that's evolution, isn't it?
Yeah. And she gets more beastly as she has more kids, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's beautiful to watch that transition, and to draw women's attention to the fact that, particularly when birth goes a bit pear-shaped, that feeling of, all right, if I can bloody get through that, I can get through anything.
Yeah, and well, I just think, you know what, like it was a day. I can do anything for a day.
Yeah.
I can do anything for a day.
Yeah,
You know?
but it acts as that catalyst for that next phase, and it's not the type of birth that matters. It's not even what happens on the day. It's what you're able to bring through as a result of going through that experience to be ready for that next big phase.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of the time, pregnant women and people surrounding pregnant women are so caught up in the birth itself that they actually forget there's a baby on the other side. You know, I think it's like when people are planning a wedding and they're so caught up in the actual day and the wedding itself, they forget there's going to be a marriage afterwards. It's like, it's similar, you know, like regardless of what happens on that day, they're your baby and they're going to be with you forever and ever and ever.
Yeah, beautiful. Now let's talk about preparing for baby number 2. What did you do differently as a result of that first experience?
We chose a different care provider, which was very challenging for me. It helped that my obstetrician was on a very limited number of babies at that time. So she was only taking on select amount of mums and whatnot. And so I suppose that made my decision a bit easier. But I was so lucky to get a position in Catch in our continuity of care program at Canberra Hospital. And I was paired with a beautiful midwife who she gave me a call because I didn't get in right away because Evelyn's birth put me into a high risk category because of the hemorrhage and the hemorrhages and the assisted delivery. So there was even a smaller amount of high risk positions available. So I don't think I got into Catch until about 18 weeks was when Caitlin called me, my midwife. And I cried when she called because I just felt so lucky because I really learnt in Evelyn's birth that just because you've got your obstetrician for your antenatal appointments and your obstetrician will most likely catch your baby, your obstetrician will not walk you through your labor. And I really learned, or in most cases, won't walk you through your labor. And I really, really learnt that it was labor support that I needed. I needed someone to encourage me to hop up and encourage me to try doing this or try that position. And so that was my real shift, was how can I get some ongoing labor support? And so had I have not, like I tried finding a student midwife, but I didn't have any success in that. And I was in the process of beginning to engage a doula for that support because I still didn't have my position in Catch. So then Caitlin contacted me and I was so so excited to have that position. I felt so, so lucky. And I worked really closely with Caitlin throughout my birth. And I also did the Transform Your Birth course, which was an absolute catalyst for me. We did it a little bit late in the picture. I think I was 36 weeks when we did the course, which again, in hindsight was too late, but I'm a great procrastinator and I just put off organizing it. And so those two key changes, having midwifery care so that I had that continuity through the actual labor itself, which never eventuated, but we'll get there. And then doing the different type of birth prep, which we found much more interactive and much more accessible and much more real life. And my husband just was blown away, got so much out of the Transform course. So I think those two things were the major differences from baby one to baby two.
So tell me how your partner, your husband, felt as a result of the first birth and then coming into the second one as well, because that would have been pretty full on for him.
Yeah. So after the first birth, he felt completely out of control. I remember the obstetrician said to him, he's like totally a head end guy. He's not blood, he's not gore, he's not interested. Like and it's not in birth, it's in absolutely everything. He just can't. Kids need a Band-Aid, that's me. Not quite to that extent, but like he just doesn't. I'm all in, right? I'm like, send me in a theater, I'll watch anything. But my husband is not that way. And so he was really confronted, I think, and felt very, very powerless the first time around. And I think that made him feel quite nervous because he didn't want that to be repeated.
Yeah. So what did he get from his birth prep that really shifted his thinking?
I think just a really clear, explicit explanation of what's likely going to happen in what order, like stages 1, 2, and 3, and an actual list of what to be doing at those times and how to best support me and our baby, and what to actually say, and that he needed to be the protection between mum and the medical team, and what he actually needed to do. Some really good real life explicit examples. You know, don't offer her a drink, put the straw up to her mouth and just see if she wants one. Just things like that, you know.
It's very practical. From
very
the
practical
experience that I've had, and we give the partners a checklist of what to do, and by the way, what not to do.
Absolutely.
And not to fuck it up.
Yeah. I think it also helped him to prepare to be in control, you know, and how to hold a space for me as well. And I think also because the trajectory of Lucinda's birth did change quite late in the piece, I think that also prepared him to support me in what I wanted at that time as well, which otherwise I think he would have been incredibly nervous about, but he wasn't.
That's great. Well, tell us about lovely Lucinda's birth.
So cheeky Lucinda, cheeky Lucinda, she was great. She was always very healthy. Oh, she was the whole time. She is a very healthy kid, healthy pregnancy. Everything was fabulous. No concerns. And then my first day of mat leave, my midwife was meant to be doing a checkup. All my checkups were at my house. And she said, "Oh, Sheena, I've got a really busy day today, a few south side appointments and I'm north side." She said, "Would you mind just popping down to the hospital?" I was like, "Yeah, no problem. I'll, grab some lunch or something while I'm out." So first day of mat leave, head to the hospital for my normal antenatal appointment, and everything was great. Had our discussion. And then right at the end, I jumped up on the bed so she could just do a little feel of my belly and a measure. And she kind of paused and I could see, I was like, "What's going on?" And she said, I think your baby is breech." And you could have shocked me because 2 weeks earlier I was looking through my book, and there's a little column in the booklet that you fill in each week, and every week it said CEPH. She'd written Ceph. And I was like, what is ceph? And I Googled that it means cephalic. And I was like,
Yeah.
what's cephalic?
Head down.
And then I was like, oh, it's the opposite of breech. Lucky my baby's not breech, is what I
Yeah.
thought. And then in Tracy's course, she said, so that was, sorry, the Monday I did Tracy's course, and the Tuesday was when Caitlin asked me to go to the hospital. So it was my second day of mat leave. So on Monday in the course, Tracy said, now don't go lounging on those couches because your baby might flip. She said, you need to make sure you're sitting up. And it was weird. And then that night, my husband said to me, I was slothing back on the couch, and my husband said, Sheena, you don't want to breech baby, you need to sit up. Anyway,
oh, no,
so the next day, I swear people made this happen to me. The next day I went to the hospital and Caitlin said, I think your baby's breech.
Oh.
So just by chance, the one appointment I had at the hospital was the one. So I would have had to go in anyway, because she pulled out a little ultrasound machine just to check that there was a bum. And she got a second opinion, because she said bums wiggle and heads bobble or something. I don't know. And they got a confirmation that the head was at the top. We didn't look at the bottom because we didn't know the gender and we didn't want any surprises at that time. And so when I reflected back on it, I remember sitting at my desk at work the week beforehand, and I had this massive movement, and it felt like my baby was about to jump out my throat. And I even said to the guy next to me, because I just went, oh my goodness. And he said, what's wrong? I said, my baby just did this huge something. And in hindsight, that's totally when she just did some gymnastics and got herself in a sticky situation that she couldn't get out of. So
when you found that out, how did that impact you in that moment? Like, what was that like?
It was very, I was very, okay, well, what do we do about it? So very pragmatic, very pragmatic about it. My first question was, does this mean a cesarean, or can I still have my baby vaginally? And Caitlin was very supportive. She said, well, that's your choice. We need to get some more information about this and make a decision from there. So it was a shock. But I'm also very much like what are you going to do about it kind of person. And I remember at the beginning of the course, Tracy, you took us through, we were going on an aeroplane and we were meant to be going to Italy, and you jump on the plane and you're going to Italy and you're going on this great holiday and you've got your bags packed, and then the plane lands and you're in India. And I remember you said to us, what would you do? And I said, I remember like picture memory saying to you, well, I'm in India. This is amazing. I'll just enjoy it while I'm here. And
nice.
And I remember you saying, what a great mindset. And when it actually came to fruition, that was my exact mindset. So there were definitely emotional challenges along the way, don't get me wrong. But I remember in that little room on that day, I was very much, well, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, I think it's important sometimes to acknowledge that those sorts of situations do come with disappointment. We can do our best not to have any expectations about birth, because ultimately it's a mystery. But at the end of the day, these sorts of things happen, and we do harbour secret ideals and
absolutely.
It's really hard to avoid that. So
and I still feel that. I still feel upset sometimes, and I still feel resentment, and I still feel frustrated and like something was taken from me. But in my heart, and we'll get into it, but in my heart, I know that I did every goddamn thing possible to flip that baby. And when she wasn't flipping, I was prepared to have her vaginally, and I did absolutely everything I could to get her out in the way that I planned to and that I really worked for. And in the end, that didn't happen, but I'm really settled with that and at peace with that, because I know that I did everything in my power. And so it was out of my hands.
Which is it's a very powerful place to come from, when you realize that there are options, when you explore them, you try different things, and then ultimately we have to surrender.
Absolutely.
We have to surrender to what is. Now, when it comes to breech babies, I'll just mention this. You know, when my first two babies were breech, and they were both born vaginally, at a time where that was just really another version of normal for some doctors. They just thought, oh well, it's coming out bottom first, and they check the positioning and make sure it's optimal. But then there was a study that came out, the big breech trial, which basically meant most breeches. It suggested that cesarean was just a safer option. But it was quite an unfortunate thing, because what it meant that most twins, where there's a second baby, usually breech, went straight to cesarean, and a lot of breech babies went straight to cesarean. And as a result of that, a lot of doctors and midwives lost their skills at working with breech, and they get quite scared. And not every breech is diagnosed. Sometimes they're waiting for a head to appear and something,
and a foot comes
crack in the middle comes out instead, and it can shock people. I've had debrief many birth stories, and one of them in particular, the doctor and the midwife the doctor was quite in shock and just was stunned, didn't actually know what to do. And there was this very much older midwife who had worked in England, and she just took over because she was confident. So it's a bit unfortunate that as a result, they've lost their confidence. Absolutely. And they see it as high risk. And some are high risk, some breaches are just on the actual positioning. So tell us about the day when she arrived and how that all unfolded.
So we went to the hospital. We were late because it took the longest time to find a stinking car park.
I even think you remember.
Yeah, I know. I actually kicked my husband out of the driver's seat in the car park. I said, "Get out, I'm parking this car," because he was driving too fast and missing the car parks. Anyway.
Blew on the way.
A 41-week pregnant woman. Yeah, get out. So we went into the hospital, and it was fabulous. It was beautiful. We met with the obstetrician who was going to be performing the cesarean, and she asked me, if I had any special requests for the birth. And so I felt very seen and very heard at that time. And I told her that I wanted delayed cord clamping, and I wanted immediate skin to skin, and I wanted the screen dropped. In hindsight, I wish I asked for a clear screen, but I knew that my husband wouldn't be super comfortable with that. And I've said to him, if we have another baby and if it lands in a theatre again, like, he needs to prepare himself, because I'm going to have a clear screen this time.
He needs to desensitize himself.
Absolutely. So I think even more moving forward, I'm falling further into this space. But I listened to the birth prep cesarean meditation while I was waiting. And then the anaesthetist, she said to me, "What are you listening to?" And I said, "Oh, just a meditation, just some music." She said, "Well, let's get a speaker and let's put it on." So they plugged my phone in, and the whole theatre was listening to my playlist, and it was just so lovely.
Oh, that's so lovely.
It was so nice. And then the actual the surgery itself went for quite a long time, because she was so jammed up in my ribs. And so my scar is actually like 22 centimeters long instead of the normal 10 or so, and they actually had to extend it mid cesarean as well. So it was quite full on because of how jammed she was, how high up she was. The benefit of that is that I didn't have the pelvic floor pressure. So I remained very comfortable for the whole 41 weeks, because she didn't drop. She was never once. So she was dropping, and then once she flipped, she went straight back up. And so I was very, very happy to become 46, 47, 48 weeks pregnant, because there was no pressure at all, So that was nice. But it did mean that during the surgery, it was quite a lot, and I had a lot of bruising on my stomach afterwards, or my abdomen area. But she came out, and they dropped the screen, and we found out we were having another girl, and she came down to my chest, and they let the cord, I don't know, it was maybe a minute, I'm not sure, but it was as delayed as they can have for a cesarean. And then the doctor did the actual cord cut to remove her from me. And then my husband went and cut her cord with my midwife. So my midwife was in there. So that was really nice because he wasn't comfortable cutting the cord the first time. So I actually cut Evelyn's cord when she was born. He was worried about mucking it up or not doing it right. And I think that is also a big change I saw in him, in the comfort from having the continuity of care with Caitlin, the midwife, because she said, no, you're not going to muck it up. This is how you do it. I'll show you, it's fine. And so he felt really trusted in that situation.
Wow. Yeah.
So he went and cut the cord, and then we just had a swarm of people in there because she was breech and big and a few other bits and pieces they were concerned about. So there were pediatricians and neonatal doctors. I don't know. There was so many people in that theatre. And then she came out and cried and they all left. So that was really nice. And she got a little vaccine in her leg. And I remember I was laying there on the table and I couldn't see her from where I was because they were like my head and then down my body to my feet, and then the little baby station was further along, and so I couldn't see where she was. So I wish that she was up next to me while she was at that little baby station so I could still see her out of my eye, but I couldn't. And so I remember I heard her cry when they gave her the vaccine, and it's so weird to think about it, but in that moment I just felt so much joy because I was like, that's my baby and she's breathing and she's well. You're like, give her another vaccine. Let me hear her again. Which is like rational brain, so bizarre, but just had a baby, hormonal brain. Of course you want to hear your baby and know that they're well when you can't see them. Yeah. So then she came back to me and the gown was taken off my chest, or just lowered on my chest, and she was placed straight on me, latched right away, and fed right away. Totally trashed my nipples because I had the spinal and so I couldn't feel anything. So she had an awful latch, but at that time, but I had no idea because I couldn't feel anything. So then I had to kind of go through that recovery over the next few days. But fed right away and just stayed with me the whole time and was really stable and well. And then they stitched me up and we went to recovery, and I think we had like 24 hours in the hospital and I convinced them to let me go home.
Wow. Yeah. So, Sheena, that's quite a ride.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And, you know, one of the things that I'm sensing listening to you talk about this is, and I'm sure at the time it was a lot harder than what is coming across now, but there's a very pragmatic, practical, okay, what have I got to do to get the job done sort of approach to your birth.
Yeah.
And of course the feelings that come with, you know, a loss of perhaps not it coming the way you wanted or anything that can unfold on the day. What, with all of that that's unfolded now, what do you think you've learnt about yourself as a result of those experiences? What's it shown you about you as a woman, as a mother?
I think as a birthing person, it has shown, like a person who would give birth, it has taught me that your body knows exactly what to do and your baby knows exactly what to do. And I really had to trust myself and trust my baby that we knew exactly what we were doing. And I remember talking to her when I was still pregnant. I didn't know it was a her, so I was talking to the baby and like just internal dialogue, and I knew that she knew what was going on. And I don't know if part of that is, I suppose, what made me feel so at ease with it. But I think we are literally, like, women, this is a very, I don't know, cave woman perspective, but women are literally on this planet to give birth. That's what we are designed to do. Of course, like, I'm a modern woman who works and has hobbies and all of these fabulous things, but our bodies are designed to birth babies. And so I had to have this massive faith in my body and my baby, and we did that. And I think a lot of that is what made me feel so okay with this. And I think as a mum, it's or even just a woman, it's taught me that I can do anything and I can overcome anything, and that you can be thrown these, obstacles or path changes or whatever they might be, and that we have the capacity to take it in our stride and make the best of a situation that you perhaps didn't want to be even facing in the first place.
Yeah. And that's mothering right there.
Mm.
Parenting is all about, we can overcome, we can rise up, we are more resilient, we are more resourceful than we ever thought we could be. And unfortunately, we don't learn that by being comfortable. We learn it by being uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And birth is a catalyst for women to discover that. So I think your story just speaks reams of that. It's if there's any message I could get to the broader community, it's this: it's that birth is the doorway into parenting. It acts as a catalyst for your awakening. It's not the type of birth that matters. It's what gets ignited inside of you. It's what gets activated inside of you. And Mother Nature has a vested interest in you discovering that you are far more powerful than you ever imagined. So thank you, Sheena. Thank you so much for sharing your rich experiences and for us to be able to use them as a tool to inspire and to teach and to, distill what birth wisdom is. As women, we need to reclaim that through our culture and start to have confidence again that we can do this. Even if we need help, we're still doing it. Really appreciate your time, darling.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.